Don't forget to check out and grab your copy of our two newly released books, Football: A Love Story and What Did Football Teach Me? These books feature over 100 stories from current and former coaches, players, executives, and entertainers from across the football landscape, describing what got them involved in the game, what they love about it, and what life lessons the game taught them. You can find your copy or order your copy from our website at footballgameplan.com/books. Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook, here with our analyst, Teron Davenport, and we're at the 2015 Heisman Trophy ceremony. Today is the press conference. Tomorrow will be the ceremonies. We'll be there, too. But today we're going to look at some guys, and, you know, it's technically a most outstanding player. But we both know that it's probably an offensive award. So we're going to give some love to some defensive guys this year that have stood out and probably could be here because of their performances. But we know, unless you're doing something outlandish like Charles Woodson was able to do when he won the award, you're probably not going to be here in New York. So let's take a look at some defensive guys that are worthy of Heisman consideration. And I know you want to kick it off with a guy that you like a lot.
Yeah, well, you look at defense, and we saw him live, and he's my favorite prospect in the nation, Jalen Smith. He's a linebacker out of Notre Dame. The guy he makes plays, and when you watch him, he explodes off the TV. When you watch his film, when you see him live, he just makes plays. He's a guy that could cover. He's versatile. When you look at him, you think explosive, you think instinctive, and you just think about his versatility, the way that he's able to cover receivers, the way he could cover running backs out the backfield. But one of the things I really like about him is his stack and shed ability. If you watch him when he shoots the gaps, if one of the linemen are there, and he'll take them on, you know, and he'll throw them aside and make the tackle. In some cases, he'll be engaged with them and still make the tackle. I love Jalen Smith as a prospect. He's an outstanding player. And for you guys that like statistics, over 100 tackles, 68 solo tackles, 9 tackles for a loss, and 5 pass breakups. Folks, there's only 3 guys in the nation that have over 100 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, and 5 pass breakups. And Jalen Smith is one of them. Outstanding linebacker. He is the best linebacker in the nation, and I think he's a guy that should be mentioned as one of the best defenders, period.
And you look at another guy I saw live early in the season when I went to the Temple Penn State game. And I came into that game looking at Temple's prospects and looking at Anthony Zetto from Penn State, the defensive tackle. But one guy in particular stood out the most the entire game and ended up being the standout the entire season, and that's defensive end Carl Nassib out of Penn State. He has done a great job. He double-digit sack performer, former walk-on, built himself into an outstanding player and now an outstanding pro prospect. So Nassib is a guy that I think has done a great job this year for the Nittany Lions defense, one of the few bright spots they've had defensively.
Yeah, and I mean, you definitely have to look at him. And he's actually a guy, he has a younger brother at University of Delaware playing as well. So it's definitely in the blood. So Nassib, that's a good mention. I'm going to mention a guy who statistics don't really do him justice. He's a guy that could play any position in the secondary. He's now playing the star position, whereas he's a pseudo linebacker and safety, and also lining up over top of the receiver in the slot position. That's Jalen Ramsey, and he is one of the two. I don't want to call him the best because I'm going to look at another guy that I think will give him competition to be the best. But Jalen Ramsey is a guy that just makes plays. He doesn't make a lot of interceptions, but he makes splash plays. He forces fumbles. He's a guy that can cover. He could come up and be strong against the run. And Florida State in the ACC, they're facing a lot of prospects, a lot of really good players. And Jalen Ramsey is a guy that comes in every week and he brings his lunch pail and does what he has to do on the football field. One of the best defensive players in the nation, and he'll be a top 10 pick in the NFL draft.
And I look at another defensive player, one of the best in the nation, was so in high school, Robert Kimdichie. And what's unique about Kimdichie, he played a little running back in high school. No one wanted to tackle him. And we've seen him this year at Ole Miss on the offensive side of football. Actually had a nice touchdown reception earlier in the season. So he's a guy that I think when you look at his athleticism, you look at that he can play anywhere along the defensive line from the 7 all the way down to the nose and be successful. You can even stand him up as an outside edge rusher and drop him back in the coverage. And we've seen his hands, again, on the offensive side of the football. He's played a little fullback too. So I think just from an athleticism standpoint and from a uniqueness standpoint and what he brings to the table skills-wise, he's one that definitely should be here as a defensive player if you were given a defensive Heisman Trophy.
So those are three versatile players that could pretty much do it all, whether it be in the secondary or as a linebacker. I'm going to bring up a guy, and I love my corners. I love my DBs. It was fun beating up on them in college.
Right.
So I'm naturally going to like them. And I'm going to talk about Vernon Hargreaves out of Florida. And he's a guy that another one that statistics don't truly do the justice, but if you look, he has 4 interceptions this year, 152 yards in return yards. So he is a guy that can, if he gets the ball in his hands, can make things happen. Had a tough game against Calvin Ridley in Alabama, but he remains one of the best. He or Jalen Ramsey, I think, will be the best defensive back in this whole class that we're looking at. But he's somebody that you have to mention because every week he takes on the number one receiver, whether it be Treadwell or Farrell Cooper or anyone else, and he's just done a great job against these guys. So he's someone you have to mention. Florida's defense before the Alabama game only allowed him 5.6 yards per pass attempt. So that's something to definitely take into account. He is the leader of that secondary, the leader of the defense also. So he's someone you have to mention. So sound fundamentally, a guy that rarely gets beat unless you're Calvin Ridley.
Right.
But at that same time, Hargreaves, I think, is the best pure cornerback in the nation. You have to mention him as well.
He was like that in high school, too. One of the more technically sound high school cornerbacks I've seen in a very long time. So that was some of our love for the defense that we gave for guys that had Heisman-worthy seasons, except on the other side of the football. So for Teron Davenport, I'm Emory Hunt. For more of our Heisman Trophy coverage, visit our website at footballgameplan.com/Heisman.